like I said, working without thinking about reaction or criticism.
I think that's the best way to take a turn in your in your style. Or I mean, I love it when people don't do the expected thing. Or
you published a lot of stuff that exists. I mean, this book existed similarly, right? The Trees of Canada
it was a present.
Right.
Yeah, presents make good. Well, you're experimenting, and you're sort of doing it for a much smaller 100 or 700 people audience, but it also just frees you up. I mean, I love how this is. It is very different, and it almost it has the sweetness to it, and the subject matter obviously lends itself to best wishes in this. But when I was reading it and making notes again, I sort of wrote down family circus loveliness. There's something.
Bill Keane seems to be coming up a lot.
And I think that's good because paired with your self-deprecation and the way you see people's idiosyncrasies and narcissism, it's awesome. It's just that sweetness with that darkness is great. And again, I just really, really love it when people take a turn in their work.
I'm expecting that there will be some negative response to it in terms of it being so cheerful and sweet-natured and everything. People will be long-term readers of my work will think it's disappointing in that regard, maybe.
I think it's brave. Okay, this is, and again, you can answer it with as much. If you don't want to, that's fine, because it's about your personal life. But the panel where Sarah's talking to you while you were at the drafting table on page 27 made me wonder what I always do about couples, just in general, who work from home, and how do you set up work boundaries, and do you talk to each other through open doors, or do you have like work hours, or is it a Joan Didion, John Donne dream relationship?
Yeah, I mean, now that we have a 1-year-old kid running around the house, and I mean, there's no set schedule. There's no boundaries or anything like that. My studio is basically a hallway that people are constantly coming and going through. But even before that, when this book was being created, the apartment we were in, my drafting table was just in our bedroom, actually. So it's it was especially for this book, it was fun because the whole goal in my mind was just like, is this strip going to make Sarah chuckle, at the end of the day? And so it was good to have someone passing through and kind of taking a look every few hours or something.
Yeah, and reading your stuff, it sort of seems as though you hear everything, and your ears are sort of always attuned to sort of background noise somehow. I was really also touched by the hamburger thing at the end, because I didn't eat anything during the 3 wedding things I went through. And I think a lot of people eat hamburgers after they get married, because the bride and the groom talk and talk and talk, and then drink a lot of champagne, and then go home and are just dying for onion rings and hamburgers. Yeah,
actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that last scene actually took place somewhere right around here in some weird hotel, at 4 a.m. Union Square doesn't have a lot to offer for in terms of food. So every time I walk by that crappy pizza and hamburger place, I'm like, oh yeah, there it is.
What else can we talk about? I made a bunch of little notes in here.
If you want to open it up to questions too, we can do that too.
Oh, okay.
You have a lot of notes, though.
Yeah,
I see. You did your homework.
I mean, there is that. We could just talk about these things. There's these lovely points in the book. I don't know how many people have read it yet, but where, again, part of the nuptial narcissism thing, you don't realize how much money you're spending, and that thing of what you're spending stuff on little bags of almonds or on a DJ, and then it's shocking and insane and you have to do it.
That's
or you don't.
You think you do. You think you have to do it. Yeah, you're tricked into thinking that. But that's why there's a little aside in this book that shows us getting involved in this charity thing, which is I didn't go into great depth about it, but it was just that basically the whole experience was becoming so ridiculous and so self-focused and elevating this event that's meant to celebrate us to such levels of importance that we did end up getting involved in this other this charity dinner thing. And there's really, I think there are some people who are hoping that this book has like advice about how to get through this process, and there's no wisdom and there's no advice. I'm not
It's absurd,
trying to impart any knowledge really, other than that thing that we did and continue to do. I think is a good at least gesture towards an antidote towards thinking about the color of doilies on the table or something.
I had a
hours.
horrible experience where I had to go to Jamaica for some work, but I was on the telephone driving through these tiny townships, and the weather was bad, and it was talking about my dress. It was
Yeah.
just awful. It just sort of.
Well, I was on an airplane flying across the country with a stupid calligraphy pen in my hand, trying to hand address invitations. All the planes jumping around.
It does make a difference, though. I believe in that personalizing.
I'm sure you did too.
invitations
I'm sure you handmade you probably watercolor painted each of your invitations or something.
I did. But yeah, I sort of, you get insistent on these things, and like you say, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, let's open it up.
Oh, sure. Okay. Does anybody out there have any questions? I think there's a microphone or something that we're supposed to use. I don't know where it is.
Oh, I think I'm early with the question.
Oh, it's fine with me, but I think they want, right? No? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, Christina. We sprung it on them.
You mentioned. Okay, sorry. You mentioned earlier on that this was a sketchbook thing, but
Yeah.
the lettering and everything else and the ink is so pristine. Did you still do an underdrawing?
A little bit.
with
A
it-
little bit. Nothing compared to what I normally do. I mean, it was sort of like stick figures, or just kind of roughing it in very lightly with the pencil. When I was really in the thick of trying to get this thing done on time, I was doing like two of these pages a day, which is not that impressive, except for the fact that it generally takes me like a week to do a page. So for me, I felt like I was really speeding along. So most of the drawing was actually done with the pen, I think.
Well, I had another question.
Yeah.
What sort of, was there a moment when Chris Oliveros of John and Quarterly said that he wanted to publish this, where you just said, "Oh, okay, shelve all of the sort of uncomfortable feelings you have about sharing intimate details about your personal life with your audience," and you just sort of went, "Screw it, here I go"?
Yeah, I mean, I think just because the book was already done and ready to go, and I felt like, I mean, also I felt like I was sort of a little running behind schedule on this other book that I'm working on, and I just felt like I wanted to do something, but I think if I'd been given the assignment, like, do a 60-page book all about the details of your wedding, no way, I would never do that. But the fact that it already existed, and that was, that I didn't have to like muster any confidence. It was sort of already done, and I just said, okay, just sent the files off.
And I wonder if it's very funny. I mean, maybe talking about yourself that closely makes the funny come easier. I mean, not that your other stuff isn't funny. It is, but it's a different kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that. I actually don't think it's that revealing. I mean, in the scope of autobiographical comics, the history of what's been done. I mean, this is like
That's true.
barely scratching the surface. This is like the opposite end of the spectrum of Joe Mad and all those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely a very edited and crafted version of autobiography, and it's not like it's not a diary by any means.
Yeah. Questions?
There's a couple right up here.
First off, I want to thank you guys for coming out and taking
thank you.
time for some of your readers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been a long-time subscriber of the New Yorker, and I'm getting a feeling that they're obviously friendly to comics. Do you see a possibility that maybe in the not-too-distant future, a fiction editor like Deborah
Treisman,
someone like her might opt to maybe print comics as the weekly fiction, or B, maybe get someone like yourself or Chris Ware, Dan Close to maybe head up be a graphic fiction editor? Do you see something like that happening, possibly?
I mean, they've been very generous about running comics of different lengths. They've had a lot of crumb strips that have been more than a couple pages, and they had a nice Wilson strip when Dan Clowes' book was coming out. They very kindly let me do a page this week to time it with this book, which was very generous of them. As far as it kind of usurping the fiction section for a week, I don't know. I mean, I think that'd be a great idea. I certainly wouldn't want to be the first guy to try and take a stab at that. That would be a lot of pressure, but I'm sure someone could do a good job at it.
Did you like the when the Times magazine had, what were they called, the funny pages?
Yeah, there was that weekly strip in the Times magazine too, which was sort of.
Yeah, it was good to see that. I don't want to monopolize this. So.
We'll ask you some questions now.
What else did you like in the newspaper? How about the sports page?
I'm from Massachusetts, so you know I'm.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Careful. Oh, right behind you.
Hi.
Hi.
I guess I was kind of wondering, in Shortcomings, Summer Blonde, some of the Optic Nerve, and your latest work, I feel like just personally, seemed like that you kind of investigate kind of alienation a lot, whether it's like sex, race, class. Mm-hmm. And I really thought it was amazing how the work is kind of extremely personal, but at the same time, these are like universal themes. And I guess I was kind of wondering if you think about your audience as you're working, or is it kind of more of a just trying to get out your personal vision?
Oh, well, thanks for the kind words. I try as much as possible to not think about an audience in particular when I'm working. If you've ever seen the comic book version of my work and read the letters column, you'll see that there's quite a bit of mixed response to things I do over the years, and I'm always happy to publish both points of view. But you can just from some of those letters columns, you'll see where someone will say, this thing that you did was the worst thing you've ever done. What a mistake. You should be ashamed of yourself. And then someone else will say, that was great. That was, And so I think just if you start trying to figure out who you're going to please and trying to find some perfect balance between those 2 points of view and everything, I think you can end up going crazy. And I think like you said, it really is a lot more just a personal thing. I have the great luxury of working for a publisher who's literally a publisher, not an editor in any way, and so the work is not edited or reviewed in any way before it sees print. And so I can sort of trick myself, and it's basically what I do. I sort of trick myself into thinking I'm working in the way that I worked on this book, in a way, like just that it's just doing this thing, and we'll see if it gets published later on, and we'll see, and that's kind of the extent of it.
Have you ever wanted to work with an editor?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have in the Times, and I have too. Like working for the New Yorker, it's